TCT presents Public Report, a look at the issues and events of importance to our viewing area. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to KDMI Television. I'm your host, Al Perez with Regenerate 7, and you are watching the TCT Public Report. Today in the studio, I have a dear and beloved friend, and 28 minutes does not do justice to this man's legacy in our community. He is a minister of the gospel, community activist, voice for the urban core. He is working with Urban Dreams, a well-respected entity in our community that is making a difference for the urban plight. He is also actively involved at the upper echelon of our Des Moines Community School District. I want you to welcome to the studio today, my friend, Ray Lewis is here. How are you, my friend?
Thank you, thank you.
Oh, man,
Right.
this is great to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
Where do I start with you? Where do we unwrap you? We go back several years. You have a grace of God on your life for reconciliation, for bringing peoples together. God just put this grace on your life. Who would know several years ago when we were connecting together and seeing men coming together, black, white, brown, that we would see a day like we're seeing today, where racial tensions have intensified in our country, where we have seen things happen all across our cities in America. We certainly in Des Moines are no exception to that. Ray, how do you see the grace that's been on your life, and we'll start there, now become more relevant now than it was several years ago when we were seeing in the church men from around the city coming together?
Yeah, those are great, powerful questions. And I don't know if we came together like it was envisioned. You know, we made an attempt, but I think we fell short. I think there's a moral courage problem in the church among our men, because we can still make a difference. And that's what's kept me here for since the early 80s, because this town is so small. It's the only place that you could pull anybody of power together in one day, right?
Yeah,
and get
true.
things done. So I've always wished and hoped, you know, that we could have the kind of leadership and spiritual movement to just wipe away, you know, all of the injustices and crime and you know, have our city be what it's supposed to be. But somehow that hasn't happened now. This is a different kind of city.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this with Urban Dreams and being involved now with Wayne Ford, who is retired, who's made his imprint, his legacy in the region, and Isaiah stepping up into play, a new generation, new fresh vision. How do you see, because you're like a father in the faith, you're kind of one of those fathers of community where you have wisdom and experiences and relationships that you bring to the table, like you're passing the baton. What do you see right now in Urban Dreams, you know, your involvement with where it is right now and where it's going?
Well, you know, for all these accolades and compliments, I've already paid you now. I mean, what else do you want?
It's called honoring.
Right.
Yeah.
I worked with Wayne Ford about 25 years ago, and I started his first youth ministry. Wayne has been a pioneer in the community. I call him the pastor of 6th Avenue. And so he's retired. Isaiah Knox have taken over the realm. Great thinker, highly motivated. I talked to him about being here, and he's agreed. He's just extremely busy right now. But Urban Dreams is still carrying the torch of reaching out to the disenfranchised. You know, right behind our building, there are crackheads and prostitutes and derelicts and the people we love that we all know by first name that protect our cars, and they make sure nothing happens to us, you know, because they're just beautiful people that happen to have, you know, just dire situations, circumstances. So we've just got to pull together, Al, and do some of the things that you're doing now, and collaborate more with many entities, the police department, the justice system, the educational system, community organizations. We need everybody to come aboard and put our heads together.
You know, we were just talking a little bit earlier. I was back in the green room discussing that about community with a local reporter who was here sharing about the uptick in terms of the violence and shooting that we see, and which a lot of cities are experiencing. And there isn't any one distinct answer you can put on it. I think it's very complex. There's a lot of complexities to it. And in our discussion, I said, usually when these kinds of things happen, our problem oftentimes is we have 5, 6 different people holding symposiums and prayer vigils, and we have them all over. And what's exhausting is you have our police department, city leadership going to every one of them, and it's like, why can't we consolidate into one meeting? Because I think that's even more advantageous, because then we can see what everybody's doing. But then certain people are invited over here, and if you're not a part of a panel,
you're not right.
What do you've been to some of those? What are some of the things that you see when people think that's the solution? Let's get a community conversation, which I think are important. Community conversations are important. But what happens when we've come together for conversations and nothing gets done?
You know, and I think in situations like that, the only people who are making money are the people who sell balloons and T-shirts, right? With the sayings on it, you know, about I've lost this, I've lost that. So what is missing is what you do after the meeting. I've been to a couple meetings where all the right people have been there. All the high-powered people have been there, but nobody's taking notes, nobody's capturing that moment, nobody's putting subcommittees together. And then we leave having gotten our frustration off, having looked at each other, having talked and fussed at each other about what the problem is and how it's to be solved, but then nothing happens until the next crisis. And then we come together again. And then folks get frustrated at those kind of meetings. So there's no planning, no real planning after the event takes place.
We had that discussion. We said that we come together, and when I think about the church, all the more, the organism of hope. You know, at the end of the day, you know, the unfortunate part for us, Ray, is that when we're at the funerals, we're at the funerals, and then our voice is interjected and our words of hope, when really proactively we could have done some other things. Especially some of us that have been in the community for such a long time. You're also involved in Des Moines Public Schools. What is your function in working with Des Moines Public Schools? Because education is huge, and it's a big, important part of this. I think that has to be somewhere in the grid, and education has to be somewhere at the table. What is your function and role?
I work with the Des Moines Public Schools in the capacity called, it's a deferred expulsion program with Jake Troja, which is a great man, you know, that worked in the community at the middle school level and developed a powerful relationship with teachers and with the kids. He's just well respected. He's the guy that told his staff, we're going to go and knock on every door of the parents of the kids who come to this school, and we're going to get to know them. And of course, you know, he wasn't a Pied Piper. They didn't follow him, but you know, he's a good man, and so he's elevated to a position where when kids come to school with massive amount of drugs or a loaded weapon, and they get expelled, right? 75% of those kids never return to school or graduate, and of course it escalates into other types of crime, and they get lost in the system. So they started this deferred expulsion program. So instead of throwing the kids away, they send them to us. We've partnered with Urban Dreams and Des Moines Public School, and we help the kids to fulfill their court orders. If they have to get therapy, whether it's drug or psychological, keep them away from guns, keep them away from those kind of problems, work with their parents, find out what's happening in the home. We bring the school to them. Since they can't any longer participate in a public school function, we bring the school to them with homebound teachers and satellite apparatus of teaching, and just very committed people who are not afraid to knock on a door that has bullet holes in it. And so we just graduated a young man that was, for the lack of a different word, one that we understand, gang banging, and loved that life, and love all the trinkets that surround that life, and was very determined to live that kind of life. But now he has hope, and he's taken a welding class. He's gotten through all of his academic requirements. He's graduated early, a brilliant kid.
Wow.
And so it was what a pleasure to stand in his house and talk to his mother, who speaks very little English, to see her son graduating early. And now he wants to walk with his graduating class in May. He's graduated already.
Wow.
So that was so powerful. But the thing that impressed me the most, Al, is that here's a kid that, I want to be honest with you, when I looked at where he came from, what he was involved in, the level, of crime that he was involved in, I didn't think he was going to make it. Because the first time I talked to him, he was a fast-talking, smooth, and I got this plan, I got that plan. Right. And I said, young man, just slow down, and let's take this a step at a time. Here's where we're going with this. And I guess he found somebody to believe in him and project a different hope for him. And he did everything we asked him to do. And this young man is graduating.
Wow.
So we need to highlight that,
It's stories like that just inspire you to say, you know what, I am making a difference.
Yeah.
And I can recall, a cycle. I've shared this story before. My grandfather didn't graduate, my father didn't, and I broke that cycle, seeing that cycle broken in my life. Jesus coming in and breaking that generational cycle.
Yes.
And it's really difficult because I realized that having that also gave me power. Having that education allowed me to go forward and accomplish something that no one before me did. And when you didn't see any of that around you, and you're the breakout for your family, it's inspiring because once you get through that hurdle, what are the next ones?
Right.
You're involved in so many areas of community. What are some of the things you enjoy most? Because you got your hands in a lot of things. What are some of the areas you enjoy most in your work in community? Because you're working with education, working with community. What are your passions, Ray, that really your trigger?
It's probably all of the above, but it's the power of all of those entities working together. I mean, that's what gets me going. When the church stands up, when the educational system stands up, when the school board stands up, when the police department stands up, when pastors stand up, when good men of goodwill stand up, and we all work together, that gets me going.
Do you think that's our problem, Ray, is getting all those silos together? We talked about this before. You said we still haven't got the work done yet. We go to these meetings sometimes in community when tragedy strikes or something strikes, and everybody gets real cynical, pessimistic about going to them because nothing's going to happen.
I think one of the problems is that we're not asking the right questions to the right people. You see, we have this academic closet full of people over here that create these big syllabus on how these people over here should live, because that's what the data says. If you do this, this, and that, then that'll change the structure over here. But we never once ask what they want. What do they need? They can tell you what they need. They know what they need. They know their family structure, whether it's broken, whether it's a grandmother, whether it's a stepfather, or whoever runs it, whether the kid runs the family. They know what they need, and we need to get them together and ask the questions. What do we need? How can we help you? What do you want? Right? Then go and develop the syllabus on how to get them what they need. Like, that's how social work was created. with the covenant houses. They would move people into the community, find out what the community wanted, and then go back and tell the people of means, here's what they want. Here's what Grandma Susie wants. Here's what, this Big Mama wants, right? And then you develop programs around their needs. And now, most of the programs that they need and most of the health care, right, that they need or decentralized. They're way out in West. My doctors move way out in West Des Moines and even further. They're more and more decentralized, and they're not accessible to the people who need it. So we got people walking around in our community, talking out loud and with themselves and really need help. Really need help.
You have a good grid in all, I like to say, the gates of culture, the mountains of culture. You're over here, you're in, government, with, schools, education, family. Ray, you also have very close contact at church. One of the few guys I know that's able to kind of cross over not only the lines of color, but denomination.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this as you see the church right now. Where does the church's role in the urban plight, because you have longevity, where do you see the church's voice in all of this, and what should it be right now?
Well, that's a great question that needs to be addressed, because the church is still the answer. The church is still the answer.
Yes.
And when you look in the Old Testament, everybody got their marching orders from the church, or not the church, but from the prophets. All the political structures, when to go to war, what to do, what decisions to make. Okay, wait a minute, let's go find out from God. And you go to the prophet, and the prophet says, you'll chill out. I'm going to God and find out what we should do. All right, God, shall we or shouldn't we? Yes, go, I've given you the victory. Then they come back and give the marching orders, and you find success. It's the other way around now, right? Where the dictates is not coming from the church, and the church is anemic in the sense that it has forgotten how powerful it is.
Wow.
This flowing blood that we talk about, that changed me, that changed you, right, has stopped flowing. And when blood stops flowing, it coagulates, like the Dead Sea. Everything goes in, and then it stops, and there's no revitalization, and it just dies right there. I was at a funeral of a mother who lost 2 kids in 29 days. 29 days, 2 kids. And I got up, and there's no polite words, there's no Christian consolation you can give, but just to cry and weep with those that weep. Amen. But at that moment, I said to the men, if we had men of goodwill and courage, we've lost our moral courage to get out there and make a difference. If you just show up, if you just take, we have our breakfasts and, men's meeting, and 40 men show up to eat a good breakfast and hype each other up about the church. How about take these 40 men and walk through the community? Don't say a word, just walk through the community, 40 men, and I guarantee you'll command, who are they? What are they doing here? Young men will always respond to grown, mature Christian men. But we don't know that. We've forgotten that somehow. We've forgotten that, Al.
Do you, man? You're hitting it, because when I look at the urban core now, a lot of times where the church is the greatest time the church should shine. This is where the greatest time the light should be able for everyone in the community to see. And that's one of the things I think in my prayer is that the church, we really do need a renewal in the urban core. There are some things. Well, here's the issue I often look at as the barometer in community development, because like you and me, we look all the way across the different spectrums and can see what's going on. And we look at the church where most, like you say, should be leading the charge. We should be bringing people together. We have the ministry of reconciliation. We should be able to do this. But oftentimes the challenges we have are what we see today. We still see things, black church, white church, or the church doesn't come over here because that's ungodly. And I think we separate ourselves rather
Absolutely.
than bring people together. Do you still see that as the great challenge in the urban core?
There's no doubt about that. I've been blessed to be a part of, I call myself a son of the church. There's no denomination I won't go and try to help and you know, try to bring peace and bring the word. I love the church, but we're too divided, right? When you go to a church, right, the place that you park at church, you know, for you and your family, that's not a measurement of how far you've gone, but where you've stopped. Here, I found a set of people who think like I think, who worship like I worship, where I think my kids will be happy, and this is where I want to stay. That's no indication of how far you've gone. That's where you've stopped. And it wasn't until I started going to other churches and listening to other people worship and seeing the cultures, the various races, you know, even country churches where my GPS ran out and I was on dirt roads trying to find the place. Only black man's ever been there. But when you get there, it's so refreshing because they're doing the thing. I mean, they're following the mandates of the Lord. And yeah, the church has really separated itself, divided. It's so different from the model that Jesus talked about. You know, when Jesus says, I will build my church and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it, we've taken that to mean, you know, no matter how the enemy onslaughts the church and bangs on the gates of the church, it won't prevail. Somehow we're going to make it through. Even if we got to climb up the rough side of the mountain, we're going to make it through. But that's not what that text means, and that's not what Jesus meant. Gates were not meant to keep people in. It was meant to keep something out, right? I will build my church and the gates of hell, not the gates of the church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against the onslaught of the church. So we are the ones that are supposed to be doing the pounding. We are the ones on the offense, pounding on the gates of hell to get what's there. My brothers, my sisters, my relatives, the people who are held captive, right? And so once we understand, I remember years ago I used to take evangelistical teams across the country and we'd end up in New York, all the boroughs, right? We're in big bad Manhattan, 28th Street, the drug dealers on each side of the church, 24-hour shifts, right? So I go outside, fire up the mics, and we're getting ready to pray. They're shooting dice and selling dope, and businessmen are coming over buying crack. And I said, let's bow with a word of prayer. With one eye open, Al. And I watched those dope dealers stop shooting dope and just nudge their buddies. Hey, man, he's getting ready to pray. And they stopped doing business for a moment. And they listened for a moment. But they went back to it, but it taught me something that no matter how rough and tough and vile people are, there is still something inside of them that respect God. There's a deep respect and yearning for the God of all creation. And we've got to, like in the beginning, when God touched us, we've got to go out with that intensity, with that beautiful, wonderful, saving message, that message of hope and deliverance. That's what people need.
Wow, that's so awesome, and you're absolutely right. We've oftentimes distanced ourselves from the very people that we're there to reach. And it takes you coming from outside to go into a place that you don't necessarily live in, and to see that. And you know what? I do believe that. I believe that there's still hope. You said something.
There is.
There's a promise that the gates of hell won't.
That's right.
And I think when the church begins to really believe the stuff they're saying, that we'll begin to see, you know, God raising up. I was just talking the other day, you know, because sometimes our seasons say, oh, you know, it's for the young people. It's for the young. Hey, Caleb was 80 years old.
That's right.
Caleb's
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
got the same strength I had 40
Same
years
strength.
ago
Yeah.
that I have now.
Yeah.
Give me my mountain.
That's
Give me
right.
my
Give me my
inheritance.
mountain. Yeah.
And so I don't think it's just allocated to a specific age. It's a generation we're in where we are seeing the Joshua and
Yeah.
Caleb
Yeah.
saying, we're not done yet.
That's right. We're
And
not
the
done.
hand of God has been good on us. He's
Yeah.
deposited in us. He's invested in us.
Yeah.
Now let's go do something of consequence. When I lay down, when we lay down ego,
Yeah.
you live in the
Yeah.
city, I live in the
Yeah.
suburbs, we should never connect. When we
Yeah.
lay down all those parameters and
Yeah.
all those things, what we can do
That's right, Al.
to change,
That's right. To change.
change a nation, because people
Yeah.
can look at a city and say, what is it about that city
Yeah.
that you guys are doing
Yeah.
that can be a template for other cities?
I go to a men's group. Well, I go to a lot of men's group, but one is a men's breakfast at AME Church, right? And I like it because I'm like in the middle age. All these guys are older than me, and one guy that passed away was in his 90s, and this guy served until the end. I mean, served until the end. There's no retirement, The only time that we can retire is when he takes us to be with him. As long as we're here, we got something to offer, something to give, something that some young person needs to see. Like you said, in your family, when you graduated, they saw that. If Al could do it, it's possible for us.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You're going to see information after this program to get a hold of maybe your mom, and you're watching this, or maybe you're a pastor or a community outreach or an activist, and he's a tremendous resource to tap into. And one of the reasons why he is because he's not afraid to go anywhere. He'll go, he works with schools, he works with pastors, he works with all kinds of community silos. Ray is a great consult. You're a great consultant. So Pastor, if you're watching this in the viewing audience, get a hold of Ray Lewis. He's been there. He has tremendous community savvy and insight. And if you're watching this and you've got a kid right now that, you heard the story he shared, that's on the brink, doesn't know his potential, and you've given up hope, I want you to reach out and try to get a hold of Ray, and you'll see information after this program because there is hope. And so I want to thank you for watching TCT today, and it helps us to bring individuals like this who are making a difference in the region onto our show. So would you consider, please, being a financial donor to our show with TCT, and you can get on our website and see how you can partner in any way, bringing the gospel 24/7 in our region. Until next time, may God bless you and keep you is our prayer. Have a great day.
This has been Public Report. Public Report discusses the issues of interest and importance to our viewing area. Please remember that the views expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of TCT or the station.